How are you? Deborah K here. Didn't mean to end up doing shows on Sunday mornings. Ironically, I was drawn back to this morning, like conversations like 16 years ago, and I still bothered to go to the so-called Christian churches down in the DC area that were actually just cults. And what I realized is, like, for example, John Sly is supposed to be pastor, whatever he wants to call himself, or Grace Community Church, or like Caroline Silver was a pastor at Peace USA Cult Church up on North Nebraska Avenue, Washington, D.C., right by American University. There was a lot of complaining from her. She didn't want me competing with her as a pastor. So it was really like, you're not allowed to be a doctor, you're not supposed to be a nurse, you're not supposed to be a performer, you're not supposed to be a pastor. Like, people in the USA are just supposed to be completely run by weird dorks from Russia and China, which is who these people are. So, the point of the show, we're in, what is this, episode 27, Simply Stated, season 5. What I want to get across to all of you is odds and ends. Like, I do this as a project for the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, the English, and South Korea, Japan, and a bunch of different countries and groups, the ACLU, the Leadership Institute. The rest of us don't give a fuck about you dumb gangbangers or people from the Russian FSB, KGB, the Chinese CCP bitching and complaining that they don't want these shows made, that we're supposed to kowtow to what, like, Hughes, Emily Hamilton, Labatt, CIC, and Accenture racing reports that actually need to go in and messing with the U.S. justice system because they don't want anything reported to the police. The biggest issue right now is the Russian FSB, the old KGB, got mad and has been trying to cut reports to the Michigan State Police, so they've been cutting lines at the libraries for people doing reporting. I just want to make sure you're all aware. Definitely keep doing your reports. Don't let anybody, bully you or threaten you or whatever. We go through it all the time with the stupid crap. So, keep making your reports, and then if you have other ways to do it, do your own show, do it. I make these also for Northern Border Patrol, so they have some idea and some sense of what's going on, and I make them publicly because, as most of you probably realize, everything is open source. One of the most ridiculous parts they went through with all this crap with Endeavor Corporation was that there was a lot of Russian FSB, KGB people involved that, frankly, literally thought no one's supposed to tell anything, no one's supposed to talk. It was certainly always the language used in the old PCUSA church that Cersei ran. Remember Cersei, Miss KGB? She's either still alive today with Chris Evans, or she's actually, dead, either one, but she's had a lot of her money and power taken away. That was the one that killed my mom, took me as a kid, and trafficked me. And also helped found Silver Lake, which apparently funds Endeavor, or Endeavor Corp is trying to kill right now. I'm very curious to see what happens. Apparently, there's some weird footage going out this morning of claiming that Putin is threatening World War III. I don't think anyone cares. Putin is not in a position to make World War III with anyone. So, just shut up. So, anyways, hi Vivian. I don't think I'm going to stop a lot this morning. For those of you who wondered, it is direct Russian FSB activity that causes the problems with the feed. I've had problems with the Russian GRU unit following me around up here. So, the issues of them wanting to mess with American media and also Chinese CCP. And I'm not even really in U.S. media. I'm not at a major network. I'm just on YouTube making some shows. It's why would you even care? I get 100 viewers a show. It's really pathetic. But they're pathetic. So I'll go through temporary stuff with the feeds on the phones. And I actually did spend years investigating issues when I was down in the D.C. area and talked to a number of journalists and even ones that were just broadcasters who said that they had constant problems with interference from Russian and Chinese military groups, literally wasting all their time and money cutting feeds on shows and trying to mess stuff up. So, anyways, and then I've also had people who've gotten on the show as trolls and claimed the feed wasn't working when it was. So, anyways, as far as the whole influence culture, people do influencing. Do your stuff, but most of us have to work another job. As far as Hollywood, it's kind of washed up and dead these days. So, as many as you know, I don't have a contract at an agency and would want one. Thank you, Vivian. As I've explained, in my life journey, decided I didn't want to be in the entertainment industry back in my teen years because I saw what was going on with the Russian FSB and Chinese CCP, and I saw that it was a lot of labor trafficking, and I struggled for over a decade afterwards to get away from them and stop being trafficked, specifically by a lot of Patrick Witzel's people. But we also need to go through the other person who is Michael Swanberg some of the time, which is actually Dax Shepard, an actor who went by the name of Adam Page back in Janesville, Wisconsin. and is married to Kristen Bell. And they posed as the Baumas down in the Washington, D.C. area in the 2000s. So, a reminder, because Kristen's been in trouble recently for posing as a doctor in Michigan and committing medical fraud at one of the hospitals down in West Branch. So, or worse, is still trying to pose as a doctor down in the emergency room. So I guess, it's a tough thing when you can't quite figure out where to go to get health care. Or is it going to be some weird Chinese CCP nut or an idiot from the Russian FSB that doesn't actually want to give you proper medical care and is just going to be an asshole and not do anything right. So important to know, because I ended up reporting Kristen Bell back in late 2025 for just that. Even I didn't know that one was actually pissing off HHS Intel, hanging out in hospitals and screwing up treatments for patients. So that's a new one for me even. I knew about the experience as posing as Dita Von Teese, the fact that she never paid me for work. She posed as a younger woman who pretended to be a soror sister in Alpha Beta Psi at Luther College. Of course, I left Alpha Beta Psi because Luther College was just one big dumb labor trafficking operation and a waste of my time, and but so she is up in the Petoskey area trying to do a setup with the actress Rachel. I can't think of her name right now. It's like Rachel. She's not a very important one. She was in the Sherlock Holmes films. Rachel McAdams. She goes by the name Annika Hansen, has been working over the Petoskey Panera. We'll go over more of this again at the end of the show for people who need a review. Legally, the issue is that she's got Kristen Bell claiming that she hit her car and there's a scratch on it. They have to do a lawsuit, and the reality is that with as much time as Annika Hansen spent being a Chinese CC member, and they're both Chinese CCP members doing dumb setups, they both owe me money for work that I never paid for. I'm going to tell you right now, the truth is Annika's not going to be able to get any money out of this. I'm not going to be able to fund money around or do any kind of money laundering, which is what they were trying to set up. If there even is a scratch on Annika's car, Annika's going to have to pay for it and use her car insurance like everybody else in Michigan has to. And as far as the rest of it, both of them, if they even try to approach the legal system, are looking at pretty extensive prison time for a long, long list of felonies. So you can forget the whole weird, fake lawsuit, the thing, hanging out, trying to tell everybody, pretending to be like a young kid. Kristen's been making fun of lesbians and pretending to be a gay woman. She's actually in a relationship with Adam Page, who poses Jack Shepard. They've been together for decades. They're both old, 60, 70-year-olds. On top of it just being really offensive to the gay community, I just don't see, it's this is why none of us have time for the labeling or dumb crap that comes out of Hollywood, where it's you're not supposed to question somebody and how they're posing. You can very much question somebody for being really hateful and weird and dishonest and messing with the U.S. justice system. So, no money for you, Annika, and no money for you, Kristen, and it might just be better if the two of you just got a goddamn fucking plane and left the goddamn country. Yeah, thanks. So, these were the two that actually set up a bunch of different, car accidents, race back in James, Wisconsin in the 90s, injured myself and other people, and thought a bunch of women were supposed to be raped and trafficked or even murdered. So, this is real. This is what's happening. It's we're not here to cover Hollywood and talk about bullshit that somebody made up in a press release or have another dumb event where, Adam Page or Patrick Witzel or some other dipshit, puts Cardi B in her full-on costume out and does a fake court hearing that you see in the news, and it's supposed to be news and the whole thing's just a lie. I'm going to give you the actual information of what's going on. So, because everyone else has had it. And it's a travesty, and it's sad that our actual news, quote-unquote news sources don't cover this stuff or can't. Doing this in my free time and work another job. I work 2 other jobs, and I'm freaking exhausted constantly. So, by the way, you'd be amazed how angry some of these people get at me for making the shows or doing any of it, but they do that to all actual journalists in this country. Pretty much anyone does mandated reporting, too. If you're a decent healthcare worker and you do mandated reporting, you don't believe children should be labor trafficked, you don't believe in slavery, then they're pretty much going to be up your ass all the time. And that's why I really don't care and just make the shows anyways. I'm fuck you, I'm going to make them anyways. So, and same for John Sly and some of these so-called pastors that run cults that are pissed off at the rest of us for standing up for human rights and refusing to support them. John famously labor trafficked me at Luther College to provide a voice for J-Lo and music for her. For one of the only 2 songs she has that people actually really even like or even care about. So, on the other side of all this, it is cold in northern Michigan today. It's actually raining. One thing about northern Michigan I've noticed is that with the beaches and the sun, you always feel like summer's there around the corner, but it's really a place that's almost always in the middle of winter. And really almost always in the middle of there's a lot of Christmas decorations people leave out all year round. You can always see candy canes. I keep a candy cane toy around. So, um, another person that was a really competitive pastor trying to be working for the Russian military, the Russian FSB, was Cersei, the one that trafficked me, and then actually tried to have a relationship with Chris Evans. Wanted to fund all the Captain America movies and used literally had me raped and beaten to fund them, made all kinds of disgusting films, myself and other people. Yeah, the show is interesting. A lot of it's a reminder for the Supreme Court because I'm literally looking at the stuff that's going on in northern Michigan this summer and I'm like, what are you doing? Because nobody here is going to agree to fund more wars. Nobody's interested in paying for this stuff, and we certainly don't want to fund Russia or China. And I don't know why these people are here still. Like, why are they still free in this country? So, we can go through the long story about how I didn't get to become a cop leader because of the hacking and phishing from Megyn Kelly's current husband, who's also gone by the name Scott Livingston and Frederick Steiner. Or we could just talk about dealing with the problem as it is. Because I'm not interested in saying the why of things and blowing off the problem. Just like everyone else, I'm interested in actually solving it. But let's get to the rest of the show and just go through topics that I've got everything sort of laid out here. So if you want to remember why I don't like Ben Affleck, or you need a reminder on top of the fact he just threw a bunch of us on a bus to be raped and he's Russian mafia, he's the one that had my teeth drilled on. Like, I still have damage to my front teeth here from him because he told some dumb dentist to drill on me if I said anything about my situation. How are you actually supposed to get any kind of adequate health care when you can't even tell a practitioner, a dentist, MP, APA, or whoever, about what's going on to get actual treatment? So, and I also want to remind you that he's the one that's been a lawyer, worked with James G. Barnes and set Timothy McVeigh, who's actually also David Barnes, and Chris Evans free repeatedly. So if you're still wondering why Timothy McVeigh, literally took a tour through Petoskey yesterday just to see how people would respond in one of his little costumes, why is he even free? It's because Ben Affleck actually works as a really corrupt lawyer and has been repeatedly getting him out of prison. Everyone noted that because of his interference, David didn't end up in prison after the fraud marriage to me, and that would have been enough simply to put him in prison. Now, was it fair to ask me to go through all that to simply do that? No. Obviously, it was a setup on part of the Russian KGB to have me labor trafficked, which is what it basically just resulted in. And of course, he's in love with Cersei, who's this crazy old woman from the Russian KGB that likes to give people attacks so they shut themselves in public or something. Or ridiculous. Spends all day sending out weird signals, weird military signals. So just keep all that in mind. I mean, he's somebody who would break your teeth. He's not a hottie. You can forget him anytime. It's not even sort of weird that he's actually still on any TV show. At all. It is supposed to be an entertainer. He's just this guy that threatens people to never talk about who he is or what's going on, and he's gonna have your teeth drilled into and destroyed. That's not hot, actually. And we're supposed to feel sorry for him because he got fired from doing anything with J-Lo because he didn't do anything right. Anyway, so episode 20, season 5. Episode 27, season... God, are we into season 6? No, oh my God. We're at episode 27, season 5, as simply stated. This has gone on so long. How does it end? I am a tired person. But yeah, let's talk about this. So 90s Wisconsin, James, Wisconsin. Remember the old rumor that Alicia Carlin Oshus, she's Oshus today, or that's whatever her name is. Used to have sex with Adam Page, or supposed to feel like a hoe. And frankly, a bunch of people came out in the industry, the actual agents, and said, no, this is all bullshit. So here's what you need to know about Alicia Carlin Oshus. She became Kim Kardashian. She's also Sam Silver that runs Silver Lake. So the entire story about Kanye, the kids, the whole thing is just completely made up. I have no idea if she has kids with anyone. Because that's also one that's supposed to be Franklin's dad the rest of the time. Franklin Silver's dad. So, as far as sorry to sending this out, all you need to know is that Alicia Carlin Oshus, remember, contributed to the death of Crystal Eggy, is also Kim Kardashian, is hanging out in Petoskey, is also Sam Silver and actually male. And very much not accepted by the actual trans community or people who actually perform. Not well liked by RuPaul or any of these other performers that actually have really serious performance backgrounds. And actually are interested in being artists. This is someone that, one day it's a dude, the next one wants to dress as a woman, everything's a lie, and it's Russian KGB. And it's also important to us because, Kim was trying to run Kim to be, a U.S. congressman or woman, depending on the day of the week. And You know, we don't need another neocon labor trafficker in Congress, so that kind of can just go. Moving on, it's important to know that she is very closely attached, or Sam actually is very closely attached with Kristen Bell, who plays Veronica Mars. What I'm going to remind you of right now that's kind of funny is that Sam is actually, who's also Kim Kardashian, is actually related to Catherine O'Gray and very much looks like Catherine O'Gray. And right now is doing some kind of stupid setup where it looks like Catherine O'Gray everywhere it goes. Worse, and this is the funny part, since we've all decided to go forward with the MI6 plan of just simply not addressing them or talking to them and letting them freak the fuck out because they're borderlines, they're freaking the fuck out. I am seeing pretty regular breakdowns from both Megyn Kelly and Alicia Carlin Oshis, or as you know her as Kim Kardashian, is also gone by the name Sam Silver, which will also make a Corey Feldman, actually. They're pretty much flipping the fuck out and not doing too well with keeping their covers. Now, the fact that MI6 was already through the area and ended up deciding to, I mean, here's the thing, people. You can't be a spy, like, even with a voice-changing system and, like, makeup and prosthetics and all that, you know, prosthesis, you're not going to be able to get away with lying about who you are because MI6 can identify you with bioinformatics. And, like, and me too, at HHS Intel too, and, like, how many other countries too. Like, you just look dumb. You look dumb. And we don't like you or actually want you in the country. And the fact that you were like Kim K or whatever the fuck you think you are today, like whatever the hell you call yourself today, you were pretty clearly just at the Met Gala, which is nothing but a really disgusting pedo fest that disgusts everyone. And it's always done with stolen money. And there's all these skimming operations that you've been a part of in Petoskey. So you obviously just funded your last shithead trip to the Met Gala with money from people in Petoskey who've been stolen from there. So I don't see any reason why anybody, I mean, believe me, people come by and they see you and they're like, it's that, and they're like, it's that. And like now, I wish some of you could see it, because it is funny, because this person is now flipping out and going, they're saying don't tell, don't talk, don't say, don't say. It's like, yeah, because you're not worth talking to. Like, we're all just waiting for the police to come pick your ass up, or, you know, maybe you just get shot one day and we're just done finally, stupid assholery. Because I'm really sick of being brought to these places to identify the dorks. Like, I just want them to go the fuck away. And I don't have problems swearing about it or saying about it. This is not for a show. This show is not for people under the age of 18. This is a show for people who are actually interested in learning the truth. And how the rest of us are dealing with it. So, the rest of us are dealing with it. So, for those of you who are confused, nobody gets excited about Ben Affleck or Kim K when they show up anywhere. Even if they're in those costumes. When we see them outside those costumes, we're not excited either. Is there potentially another episode of Punk'd being filmed? Possibly, but I think this time it might be about actually putting some of these dorks away. Yeah, I think there's a bunch of people that have deals to turn people in, and that's what's actually going on. And I am just going to continue to be like, about all of it, because it isn't really worth my time to say anything. Like, all of us went through the whole process of like a 20, 30-year process of confronting these people. All they do is flip the fuck out, call Mommy Russia and go, oh, I'm so upset, they're not being nice to us, we can't dominate everyone, we can't tell everyone what to do. And yeah, I'm being really bitchy, making fun of you, and one of the voices I can actually do, because I was an actual trained voice actor, and you're not. You know, I can actually do that with my voice, you can't. Right? So, just to make that another point there, we don't care. And nobody cares what Putin feels about it. You can threaten to blow everyone up. It's like, like, believe me, one of us might blow you up first. So it might be time to shut up. Because nobody's going to, like, suddenly make offers to work for free or be slaves to a bunch of dumb bitches from Russia, China, Albania, or Iowa's butthole. So as far as I'm concerned, you can go crawl right back up Putin's ass, because that's apparently where you live if we're getting these kinds of threats today. It is a stupid thing to make them. Or did you just put those through in, like, some local YouTube feed so a few of us that don't give a fuck about you could see it? Need to remind you again, Sandy Keizer is actually Katie Couric. I'm going to remind you this person is a dog rapist who raped my dog Penelope, had tried to kill me multiple times. Other people broke into the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency multiple times and committed strikes on U.S. citizens using our equipment. The U.S. government didn't actually do it. It was actually Katie Couric working through Booz Allen Hamilton. It's to remind you this person is still actively working at NBC. Saturday Night Live just did a really weird offensive episode last night making fun of, bizarrely they were actually making fun of Hollywood culture, and it wasn't really U.S. culture, but the fact that they went so far out of their way to be bitchy to Yoko Ono and her love of Shih Tzus in the episode, and to, like, poke at YG Entertainment, and, like, wow, you, like, is it me or is Will Ferrell just really suicidal and trying to get shot? Because I saw a bit of clip and I went, oh wow, he's got like the poor little drugged up Shih Tzu being held hostage in the scene, and it's not actually funny, and it's just so obviously made for people from Russia or China that like hate everyone. Um, SNL is a washed up show. It's a really washed up show, but it's especially that when you see the hatefulness and weird attitudes in it, and it's really not funny. Especially not with the poor dog being drugged in it. So it's like, oh, animal abuse with Will Ferrell. That's not a comedy routine. It's just gross. Um so anyways, we're moving on from here. Yes, I did see Sandy Kleeser / Kay Kirk follow me around recently at the Meijer. She was stalking me while I was trying to do shopping for some medical stuff. I'd really appreciate if anyone would just pick the dork up and put it back in prison. It was in for like 10 years. It's not something that needs to be out, something that needs to be put away. It doesn't need to be stalking any of us to see what we're purchasing because it hates U.S. citizens or anyone who isn't Russian, which is her problem. And her allegiance to the Russian FSB, the old KGB, nobody has time for this crap. And it doesn't need to be following me or anyone else around. Get a fucking life. Is all I have to say, because this work you do for Russia and China, mate, doesn't just make you look like an asshole. Michigan is so dangerous sometimes. I just wonder, I'm like, I don't know. Is it just some long-term series of operations to get him up here and get him out of their element in some place where their security systems really don't work and just get him killed? Because following me, I'm nothing but bait for you to die following me around. Why would you even want to try to work around me, I want to remind the rest of you that I've got to put this out here. So, Ashley Elizabeth Graham, remember the model? She worked with me at the Hathaway Group, back in the mid-2000s. She spent a lot of time setting up the car accident I was in that Katie Kirk was also a part of. I ended up interviewing my hand, and essentially the whole thing was just about setting me up to be labor trafficked, and I went through a number of years being beaten and abused. Adam Page, Michael Swanberg, Michael Kroll. You also had Patrick Wetzel himself being on me and demanding me material for free. And I also dealt with abuse from Sarah Sade Wilhelm, who tried to pose my parents and then got away from him to protect her. And unfortunately, that's also Silver Lake. The corporation specifically survived on trafficking people and not paying people for work and keeping them slaves and actually openly victimizing and abusing them and using hoop systems on them. And it's part of MS-13 as well as the Russian FSB and Chinese CCP, as well as strong relationships to Iran. This is why I actively say if the U.S. government would like to address the issues of Russian and Chinese and Iranian activity here in the U.S., anytime you want to do that and get control of these people and stop pretending like they're actually a part of our society and put them in the prisons where they belong or execute them or find a way to permanently deport them would be great. Because that's actually what people really want. I don't need a goddamn Hollywood celebrity shitting and farting and stealing everyone's money all over town anywhere in this country. The obsession with raping and beating on kids and squatting and shitting in other people's houses is more than enough to be like, there's no such thing as a Hollywood celebrity. This isn't anymore. And there's not a one I would name that I'd be want to be around. I actually worry when any of them show up, because for the ones that aren't total criminals, I'm like, oh God, what do you want? Are you mad because somebody beat you? Because we've all been beaten by them. If you want to restore some of your livelihood or yourself, I don't think you restore the livelihood with what's happened with Patrick and these other guys. Adam Page being a good example of one that's our name that Dak Shepard has gone by. The only way forward really is to deal with the world of reality and what's actually happening and not be caught up in the disassociative cult crap. So let's move on. Let's see, J-Lo, 0 fucks given, that's where we're at. We announced this 2 years ago, we're at 0 fucks given. Apparently claimed that she was in a relationship with Will Smith, turned out to be a false story. Good for Will Smith. What it made me do was look at this big puffy jacket I had that had a plaid inside. I thought, well, I don't really want a winter coat with a plaid inside. It looks too much like the ones Will's been wearing, so I didn't cut it up. The funny thing is, the story disappeared as soon as I cut that coat up. And it's especially weird because, I'm pretty sure Will's actually Mizrahi or Sephardic Jew. He has some ancestry there. So it's why? No, those two wouldn't date. But it's interesting they tried to make that story up. And I think, putting a hold in the story and just waiting to see if it passed out of the news cycle is pretty good. They're not together. Probably decidedly so, since Will's pretty much come out as really liking men at this point in his life. So, it's a funny story. But, and then also, for some of you who have noticed the sort of Kim K activity, and Megan dressing up in weird outfits and being obnoxious to people, it's to get people mad. They're crazy enough to want to pay somebody to yell at them to fuck off. And maybe that's what one of you should do. Like, you should do a setup, because they're trying to film people yelling at them, and doing fake lawsuits and stuff. So, you might, I don't know, maybe you could get a deal to, like, get paid like $10,000 to go tell one of them to F off. I don't know. Maybe you could make a money maker out of that. But for the rest of us, we're just be like, no, it's really not that important. Go away, go the fuck away. Let's see. We covered the fact that, oh yeah, I did a Simply Yoga episode, a special one on Mother's Day last weekend, as I had some idiot from the Russian GRU following me around a truck trying to mess up the feed. For me, I'd already made the episode I needed to for my fans in Simply Yoga with Deborah, which is like a small group, so I just went ahead and like deleted it. I was like, I don't have time for this shit. Do you like my hair? It's got like the one piece that sticks out over here because I got the rest of it off. I'm just gonna be like this. I think it's kind of funny, actually. So yeah, that was episode 10. I filmed it at the Ottawa beach. I did get a tip this week from someone, though, that apparently the Ottawa Native American community casinos are having a lot of fights. He said he thought it was gang violence related. I'm going to tell you the truth that Jean Livingston, the person who posed as Jean Livingston back in Janesville, Wisconsin, and also Johnstown, Pennsylvania, she apparently went to work at the Ottawa casino in 2025. And she's still there. I caught her working there in April 2026. And she's Russian. Yeah, she lied about being Armenian. She's actually Russian. I don't know if she was ever a victim of abuse, but she certainly divorced Dave Livingston, who posed as Scott Livingston's dad. Like, those people are actually related. They're all Russians who were here illegally and had covers, or what they thought were covers, until the world caught up in bioinformatics and technology, and they couldn't lie about who they were anymore. So, but I guess maybe we don't really want to promote the Ottawa casino right now with some of the drama. Maybe it's a place to just kind of avoid and stay away from with everything else that's going on. Too bad, I'm not really a casino person. I've gone to some that had fun. I think that's a fun place to visit. It's just like too bad if something doesn't really, I don't like to see businesses be overrun by Russian activity and start to fail. Like, that's not cool. But that's what's happening. So I do need to note that I had a person recently try to claim that I was still married to Timothy McVeigh, always would be. This person was actually openly corrected in public. I never had a real marriage to the guy. The whole thing was labor trafficking, so I'm just letting you all know. Also, if there's anything you could say that would get you in trouble with the police or anyone else, or just make you totally hate, it would be to claim that that guy was ever married to me. And that was David Barnes, and he also went by the name Chris Evans. So nobody's that in love with Hollywood, and certainly not him. Even the Heritage Foundation, that's Russian, said nobody actually liked him well enough there to really care. And maybe there was just a way of covering up things. The problem with the Heritage Foundation is they just didn't take enough responsibility for the fact that they are Russian FSB and Chinese CCP. They really did give him a place of doing operations there until he was finally fired, because apparently he's too incompetent for even the Russian FSB. It's weird stuff. Another way of saying all this is that, there's frankly too many weird men in the world that spend a lot of time upsetting the actual real men of the world, and most of them try to dress up as women to get by. I never saw Timothy doing that, but that's certainly the problem with Kim K and Megyn Kelly. They're both dudes dressing up as women, dressing up as super weird women right now. But, and remember that, like, Megyn Kelly claims she doesn't go to the Met Gala, but she does still go to the Met Gala under a different alias and costume. And then, like, it's turned Alicia Garland Oshus, who's also Kim Kardashian, who's actually also Sam Silver Lake, definitely attended Luther College and posed as a student there during the years I was there. Really weird. But that was something that a bunch of people who went to the school actually finally wanted the public to know and released. I need to add, so that's just important information for those of you who are still working all this stuff or trying to put together in your head, like, what's going on. I need to note for you that I have decided that President Donald Trump actually needs a home health aide, that I don't think he can really handle being president. I don't even believe he was responsible for the talks that went well this past week with China and putting an end to some things. I think he basically just needs a caregiver. Unfortunately, since he decided to get mad at the company I worked for, Home Instead Senior Care, and he wanted to go after them, for employing me and not continue to give my paychecks to Wilhelm and Cersei when I was being labor tracked by them. Because I actually had 5 years of really substantial good work with them. And I know repeated Bolshevik groups got mad, corporatists got mad because I actually found a job where I was paid and it wasn't just being labor trafficked. So that's always been a constant struggle for me with dumb dorks that want to keep slaves and just want plantations, never wanting me to have a paying job and even trying to show up at them and ruin them. Moving on, we're going to Tulsi Gabbard. There was a fake fabricated story about the CIA this week saying that the documents of the JFK and MK Ultra experiments were stolen, that the CIA, which is actually Booz Allen Hamilton, broke in to take those from her. That's not possible. They would have had to have a court order to do that. There would be substantial reasons for Booz Allen Hamilton to seize those. Booz Allen Hamilton is actually a Russian company, so I'm just going to note that. It's a private group, and it's important to know that the story is just false. So Tulsi's just making up some weird dork story. And it really doesn't even make sense because she actually works at Booz Allen Hamilton, so it's just like this entirely false, fabricated story of how these documents were stolen. As far as MK Ultra goes and like JFK, you've heard the truth here. There's nothing more to know, people. You don't want to spend your time reading anything that's considered Russian obfuscation or Chinese obfuscation, what those events were. And who wants to be so trashy as to continue to torment the Kennedy family over all this? Like, it's 2026. Like, the guy died in the 60s. Like, ew, it's been a really long time. Like, you look super weird bringing it up anymore. I just said there's going to be a cover-up when the American people already decided the truth a long time ago. Like, Donahue got all this decades ago on his show. I need to note that Gabby lived under the name Beth, I think it was Beth Henke or Beth Hunter. She was my roommate at Luther College. That's also Susan Clutson, who joined MS-13, was taking orders from Cersei and Wilhelm, and was married to Dr. Clutson, she also is former KGB, or is still KGB. They got divorced in the 90s, so she ruined her marriage to him. And why to claim they were not married? They were. They weren't an undercover couple. They had a marriage. She ruined it. And it's important to note that, Susan actually joined MS-13, completely lost her shit, and started talking about how she thought she could send radio signals to women and how she was gay. It was like, how nuts is she? And she's a part of a number of racist women's groups in Jay's, Wisconsin in the 90s. So, right there with Pam Bondi, who posed as Paula Gordon. Like, I just want to make sure you all guys are all aware of this, because you have, at least in the 90s, you had a bunch of bank robbing, extortion schemes, labor trafficking, neocon crap. Had those tube systems that are usually reserved for animals put on myself and other women to have us raped and beaten for years to get those removed. The whole thing's really nasty. So, really nasty person. She's had some demotions, is not really respected as running our national intelligence, and never would have been with what's happened, but it's important to know all that. So, I need to know that Pam Bondi, your former Attorney General for the U.S., is listing false claims that she is being harassed by the Epstein victims and gangs. Well, here's the truth. Pam Bondi is a member of MS-13. She's also a member of the Russian FSB. She is harassing the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. She is actually in a bunch of gangs, at least one. And she is an incredibly nasty person who does nothing but attack and set up other people for failure, all of us who's ever been victimized by these people, simply over money and just being a part of the old KGB and frankly being part of MS-13. So she has nothing to say about it. As far as being in danger, she's not. It's a dumb story. And a lie. I'm going to move on that, there's some stuff here. Oh, no, I'm going to skip this. It's been strange seeing a few of these people up here. Somebody who got in trouble, so this is Michael Swanberg, but it's also Adam Page. They both lied about some of the items that had been given as gifts and claimed that they were from them and they were Russian and had to be destroyed. For example, like the black wool kimono that I had bought a couple years back, I ended up cutting up in Traverse City, like in 2024. That was actually sent to me by Yoko Ono, and who was actually my teacher when I was a kid. And I mean, this thing with the guys lying and claiming this stuff is from Russia and that I can't have it, and they're Russians, and it's actually from these other people that have been friends or family to me because they're part of these dumb Russian cult groups that want to labor traffic everybody, and they don't want to remember my mom or my dad or anyone who ever cared about me. It's really out of control, and so as far as the streams and that's been corrected, but I'm not going to go around and just destroy everything that I've been sent from these other people who actually cared about me. And frankly, again, going back to the beginning of the show, it's like, why are these people still free in the U.S.? Because it isn't my job as a citizen to like pick up the ball and carry it. I mean, the Supreme Court could actually do something about this person. But as far as pissing off the Japanese and Teriko and her people and everyone else, like, it's pretty disgusting for someone to demand that I cut up something one of them had given me. And that's pretty much the point about that. Part of the reason I got the PCUSA, and through their Christian churches was that they were Christian and were cults and were greedy and evil and jealous and just wanted to destroy my life and everyone else's. So I don't value them. This shows your weekly reminder. I'm not in your 12-step group. I'm not in your cult. I'm not in your Christian group, your Muslim group, or your Jewish group cult. So, and the rest of us have completely different lives and run our lives by the actual laws of this country, not your cult. So, change of topic. So RuPaul's got Stop That Train movie coming out. I have to note for you, I won't be able to go see it in the theater because Fatina would actually, who's also gone by the name Kendall Corey as an alias, also is known as Ava Max. I think she was also going by the name like Heather or something. She's going by the name Heather at one point last year. I couldn't go to a theater because she actually tried to kill me. I went to one, especially to see that one. She hates Sarah Michelle Gellar. She famously worked at the LA Club in the 2000s and used to get in fights with Sarah Michelle Gellar and try to beat up on her because Sarah Michelle Gellar is not actually a communist. I'm not going to praise Sarah Michelle Gellar or say put her forward. For all I know, she wasn't even paid to be in the movie, but or to promote it. But I have to note that I wrote some of the material for it. I'm not listed as a writer on it. RuPaul has instead chosen to support me and staying free and not having to put up with bullshit from some of the other people I've mentioned in this episode. So it's not a KGB film. The Chinese CCP isn't going to like it or support it. Neither will the Russian FSB. For a lot of you try to go see the theaters, I don't know how it's going to go. But, if any of those dorks are around, the theaters might not be the safest place to go see it, is all I'm going to say as a warning. And, RuPaul / like he's gone by the name Jay, has been in Michigan a few times the past years to make sure I was okay. Kind of sad, right? Yeah, kind of sad that the money's had to be put there instead of me getting credit as a writer. Maybe get paid for it in that case. But, some stuff actually works out correctly. So, and, Jay / RuPaul, I'm just letting you know they're aware you've been traveling some, but you obviously can handle it, so. Let's see, Kim Kardashian, yeah, so Kim Kardashian, Megyn Kelly, remember Kim Kardashian's actually a man, it's actually a 60-year-old man, goes by the name Sam Silver, has been hanging out with Petoskey. Right now it's doing its best Catherine the Great, horny horsefucker rapist impression, because it's very proud of its lineage to Catherine the Great, who's Russian, even though Russians don't like that person. And then Megyn Kelly's been dressing up as they're actually best friends, both Russian, very proud of themselves as gang members in MS-13, and beating up and abusing U.S. citizens. Yeah, we covered the fact about Kim having actually attended Luther College in Iowa. It's a male, 1980 to 2002. And remember, it's actually Sam Silver, as far as anyone knows at this point, and male. And bizarrely doing weird gyrations and masturbating in public these days. Like, I didn't realize this one had gone so nuts. But it's gotten to the point where it isn't just openly skimming and stealing from people and going completely crazy and breakdowns. It's actually started, like, doing weird pelvic thrusts at people and being gross. So it's breaking down. Like, believe me, this is working. It's just, it's interesting. It's probably going to be ugly on the way down to that one fully breaking down, having to be institutionalized, but it's headed there. It's headed there, believe me. I want to also take a moment to remind you that Ben Affleck, the actual person, not the character he created, has actually been with Lisa Stick and Lewis for decades. And they actually have a strong relationship with each other. And the Lisa Stick and Lewis is actually the director, Brett Ratner, who also steals and skims from people and has been driving U.S. companies crazy. And internationally, too, probably. Let's see. Ooh, Elk Rapids Beach. I went back there on 5/14/2026. There was some weird drone at the beach. I ended up leaving. I think the problem with Elk Rapids is that it's downriver of the sewage treatment plant in Charlevoix, and then there's all this weird crap that's been deposited. Plus, it's got all these weird child parks there where the kids like literally poop and put their feces in the water. So you've got a huge amount of weird wildlife there that's just disgusting. It would be a pretty beach until you look at that. And, like, I mean, there's some. I looked at this last year. I went back and looked at this as a scientist, and there is too much weird, funky aquatic life in here. And it is just not a safe, healthy beach. I mean, it is basically one that needs to be shut down, I think. I don't care if you think it's pretty. It's got, there's too many weird hits there. There's too much weird junk in the water. Too much weird wildlife. And, It's just one big bioterror zone. And apparently Lucy Barnes, who happens to also be Jamie Lee Curtis, has been around there messing around and planting weird, disgusting wildlife. So that might kill you, as well as weirdo drones. So it's got too much drama. I think maybe they'll get cleaned up. It kind of looks like it already needs to be closed for like toxic shit. Need to add that So related to that topic, for those of you who weren't aware of this, the Chinese and Russian military groups can mutate, manipulate snakes, reptiles, sharks, amphibians, eels, and fish so that they attack people. They might not normally attack you, but if somebody's got control of them with radio signals, they would. And then, so you kind of have to throw that into the mix with the Elk Rapids beach, because that's not an environment that's going to be really healthy for them, and they might be more manipulatable. So you could end up with some really weird experiences there. I need to also add that, sadly, I put a lot of money and effort and time to create that beach. One of the reasons I'm poor today is because I worked on all these projects. And, I'm just going to borrow a phrase from my old professor at UVA who would say, well, not real. David Swanson, he's dead, deceased now, really great man, but he said it's not real. You say about Capitol Hill, it's the same problem, DC. Same thing about the beach. It's just not real. It just isn't really a safe place to be. So, I would also add, it would be nice if Lucy Barnes / Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't nuts or BGB and racist. Some of these events wouldn't happen, like this bioterrorism. But, and remember that this person also plays Sharon Stone. She or he is definitely the cause of these animal reptile dysfunctional events on Lake Michigan, both down in Chicago and then the northwest coast of Michigan. Like the weird bugs that exploded all over the place, the sandflies and whatever that was last year was from her, and she told everyone about it, and they just didn't bother. I don't understand. I'm like, why are you just letting this stuff roll? Like, the whole point of knowing about this is to put a stop to it, not to just let it roll. I'm kidding a little bit here. I was going to say, who knew Xi Jinping is a fan of my, YouTube shows? No. But seriously, this week, the Chinese government did some meetings with representatives from the U.S. government and decided that they did not want to continue operations in Iran. And apparently, the press release says that Donald Trump and Xi Jinping agreed to work on peace and really, really deal with the Chinese problem of them interacting with people in, Israel, Iran, the Middle East, and Russia as well. So. I need to note for you that it was actually Fatina who plays Ava Max, the pop singer who's actually Albanian. Confirmed that Mary Catherine Ham is Pia Witzel, just to follow up on why I knew that. That person actually did put in the confirmation of it. I don't know why she decided to do that. She likes to think of herself as somebody who passes information back and forth. I kind of already knew that, so I don't think it would necessarily be a favor to me, but that's what she chose to do, so apparently I'm just gonna, what, you have to put this in for your probation officer or something, so... It's a little late. It was after the episode was already done. But anyways. So let's get back to talking about Kristen Bell. She's PCUSA. She's also working for the Chinese CCP. She's in trouble for impersonating a medical doctor in the McLaren Health System. And it's important to note that she also put the name Angela Boma. Like to work to Steve Devontees. Never paid me for any of that. Not really very attractive. She's also Veronica Mars. And she's married to Dax Shepard, at least publicly, but then he's actually also going with the name Adam Page, and he also went by the name Herman Bauer. And I need to do a daily reminder, weekly reminder that Amal Clooney is also Anna Coulson, so I'm just kind of cruising through your weird females that are, want to pretend to be celebrities or think they're celebrities like nuts, and they're not, and they're perverts and rapists and weirdos. This is what we're really talking about, and they need to be put in prison or permanently deported from the U.S. Put them somewhere. Put them in a psych ward. I don't care. Put them in a locked door psych ward. Solutions aren't that hard. Yeah, it's not hard. So fraud, and then, going back to the incident in James, Wisconsin, I had a scratch on my car, but I ended up having to pay a bunch of money to Annika Hansen in the 90s, who ended up becoming Rachel McAdams, Chinese CCP. Apparently now Annika's just got a scratch on her car. And it's going back and forth with Kristen Bell and some weird setup trying to circulate money around, and even if you like waste time in the U.S. court system? And the answer to that is no. We're going to give it a no. You have car insurance, Annika, if that even actually happened, and frankly, you both owe myself and a bunch of other people money, so no one's really going to support you in funneling money back and forth. And frankly, the local law firms really can't do anything for you on that because everyone's aware of the setup. You know, nobody gives a fuck about your MS-13 Chinese CCP bullshit. MI6 already came through and identified you, so as HHS Intel. Nobody knows that there really even is a scratch on this person's car, and nobody has time for Kristen Bell making up dumbass stories and making fun of gay people. Let's pretend to be gay right now, making fun of lesbians, and pretending that it got, like, Annika's car. Yeah, fuck off. That's all I'm gonna say about it. So, and as far as getting angry with me or the rest of us for telling you the truth, well, apparently you have to be addressed somehow because you're too mentally ill to understand reality when people ignore you. So somebody has to make a show of some sort where you actually get told the truth along with everyone else about it. For the Border Patrol's sake or everyone else. Or maybe even just because that's really fun to do. Let's see. Oh, Nick Kaiser, profile back in Jason, Wisconsin, is being part of the skimming schemes in some of the stores there, especially Walmart. It's definitely true. He's back up in Petoskey, or at least someone with the same profile as we're working with Kim Kardashian, is also Sam Silver on stealing a bunch of merchandise and stealing from stores. So, you know, the guy who literally every day bitches about how he hates Bill Gates over Microsoft because Bill Gates has worked really hard in helping the U.S. government and other world governments identify these people and behaviors and putting stops on the crime. So really hates Bill Gates, wants to talk about he's an Epstein person. So I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure Bill Gates is like the last person who would be a supporter of Jeffrey Epstein. Like, this is why I have to make these shows, because there's so much bullshit and lying on behalf of criminal groups. And, you know, here I am poor, not in retirement, could be a doctor or nurse, but he's all this dumbassery, extortion schemes, and years of literally with my head stuck to the side. Like, he's a part of that society. So, yeah, around. So, you know, see a guy who seems kind of handsome. Like, if there's any time in your life where you see a guy kind of handsome and tall and say, no, I don't need love, I don't need romance, like, this is the time. So a reminder, Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard. Dax Shepard's actually on Page, one of the guys who raped and beat me for years, part of the Peace USA, Chinese CCP, and worked with the Russian government as well. And Adam would be one of the main ones that collected all that material for me and didn't pay me for the work and simply thought he would just spend the rest of his life raping and beating on me and never have to pay for anything. Most of you are going to go, oh, is that a suit? It's a lawsuit. It's like, no, because a lawsuit is between two parties who one has the means to pay and will pay. The other one knows that it's actually that you actually have a legal premise for a lawsuit and can have one, right? But when you're down to what the Supreme Court says is a bunch of felonies and you belong to prison, not going to be a suit. And you don't have to worry about owing any money, right? You owe prison time. Or maybe even an execution. That's it. That's all it is. So maybe that's what we should really call this show, is your weekly reminder that you're not up for lawsuits or settlements, you're only up for prison time. And I would also know that those two definitely interfered with me being able to go to medical school on behalf of their allegiance to the weird dorks over at the Russian KGB, FSB, and Chinese CCB, or even be able to be a nurse. Like, I'm somebody who worked really hard in healthcare, and I'm really good at it, and I worked for a Fortune 400 company. I still have references from them, and I was attacked by a dumb bitch from the Russian FSB and permanently injured my back. And I don't have time for people who want to, like, try to disprove or prove it. Like, I actually can't do any heavy lifting anymore and have permanent back issues. And you know, any job I go to, I tell them, and the management's like, fine. And it's just a constant issue with people being completely rude from those groups and going on and on about the back to me. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do heavy lifting for you. I actually can. And I specifically told them that, and so that I didn't have to be hired on the job if it was a problem. And that's still true today. Like, every job I've taken ever since, like, I've quit jobs over it. I was like, no, I can't do the heavy lifting. If that's a problem, then I'll be gone. Because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life apologizing for whatever you want to call it, the malfeasance, the aggression and hostility from other groups that mess up my back. Like, I'm going to take care of myself, just like everybody else does. Take care of themselves. So, that's really it for the show. That's it for the episode, yeah. Plenty of jobs out there where you don't have to do any heavy lifting or anything like that. So, episode 27, season 5, Simply State Odds and Ends. This has been another episode. Have a good day. Bye.